everyone. Welcome to the Psychology and Spirituality, a Bridge to a Better Life discussion. I'm your host, Marcia Trajano, and with me is my dear friend, Dr. Suzana Simões. If this is the first time you're watching this podcast program, please note that the Psychology and Spirituality weekly talks are based on the works by Joanna de Angelis. And we're here, I repeat this every time because it's important. We're here to offer safe space to confront, compare, correlate, and expand spirituality concepts from this psychological lens, bringing perhaps insights, tips, and even real world advice to help you and me lead a better life. Today, Suzana Simões will share some thoughts around, oh, ancestral legacies and how deeply etched in the very core of ourselves and how they prevail in our unconscious archives. Susanna will discuss about how legacies that we bring with us are manifested often as escape mechanism and how they, oh my goodness, conceal our inner conflicts. So as such, they are transformed into feelings, right, Susanna, of low self-esteem, low self-respect, and in fact will lead to a state that we're discussing this today, this inability to love ourselves. That's the whole idea. But Susanna, before we start our conversation, I would like to recognize the organization that is sponsoring this program, Mansão do Caminho, the United States Spiritist Federation, the International Spiritist Council, and AMI Brazil. For all of you who are watching this, please make sure you hit subscribe if you haven't done so. And of course, if you'd like to know more and if you want to check out what other resources are there, do so by going to spiritist.us. If you have any questions, please do write them down at the chat window and we will address them, if not now, at a later episode. But hi, Susanna. I just want to tell you, I woke up this morning with it's a quite popular song, but this song stuck in my mind. And it is, of course, John Lennon and Paul McCartney, when with the Beatles, they talked in all their glory. All you need is love, right? And at one level, if you think about the song, means that love is the most important thing in the world, right? But if you start to reflecting upon the lyrics, just the lyrics of a very, very popular song of the 60s, it also means that love is the one thing that we're mostly lacking, the one thing that we don't have. So for all of you, before I ask Susanna to talk a little bit about love or the lack of love, I want to say that the lyrics go like this: love, love, love. There's nothing you can do that can't be done with love, of course. Nothing you can sing that can't be sung. Love that line. Nothing you can say, but you can learn how to play the game. It's easy. Nothing you can make that can't be made. No one you can save that can't be saved. Nothing you can do, but you can learn how to be you in time. It's easy. All you need is love. Love is all you need. Isn't this great, Susanna? So let's
Yeah,
talk today about if love indeed is the most important thing in our lives, then why are there so many obstacles to loving? But most importantly, we're going to focus today self-love. What are your thoughts? Can you talk a little bit about it, please?
yes. Good morning, Marcia. Good morning to everyone. Before we talk, I just want to share that the content, the ideas that Joanna brings to us this morning, that is the topic that Marcia is asking me, come from the book Finding Peace and Health, and is in chapter 3. So if you want to further your understanding, if you're intrigued by the concepts that we are talking about, this is the book that you would refer to, and more specifically, chapter 3. Um, Yes, I mean, love is the base, is the essence of our lives, right? So, if you think about creation is an act of love. If you think about who we are divine beings. So, love is also our essence, and it is our destination, the ability to fully express love in unconditional ways. So, whether you're looking at the source, at the journey, or at the end point, it's all about love. But
But I want to say it's a journey that is almost like an emotional roller coaster, right? So
yeah, the thing is that love can be learned. So, love is something that we develop, that we really learn, is a virtue that needs to be nurtured, and it needs to unfold. We have it in the form of potential, but like you mentioned, there are obstacles
Mhm.
that appear on the way. And in the spiritist perspective, thinking of ourselves as immortal beings who are having many experiences within matter, we come here so that we can learn, we can be tested. And the way that God um, wanted things to be is that we are created perfect, but perfectible. Perfect in the sense that everything that God does is perfect, but
Mhm.
perfectible in the sense that it is up to us within our time, within our choices, to actually build ourselves and become the gods that we all are in potential.
And this is
So
a beautiful concept, right? So if you think about it, it's perfect but perfectibility. So there's two
yes.
areas of who we are, and all of it is enveloped with this beautiful notion that from a source, from the creation perspective, it's all about love. It's with
Hmm.
mercy, with love, and tolerance, and understanding there is a path, there's a time, right? Last time we talked about there was this
Right.
the time that let's not rush. Let's be loving ourselves in our perfectibility.
Hmm. Yeah, so that's kind of difficult for us at this moment because we don't always agree with God's plans. So God
Mhm.
planned that it would be a gradual process of self construction that, at least at this moment of our evolution, leans
Mhm.
on trials and errors.
Yes.
So to err is to be human. And to be human is also a divine state of things. Our egos have a very difficult time managing this concept. So we seek perfection because we also seek connection. We seek um, belonging, and so we have all those things very tied up to the need to be perfect, and so it becomes very distressful when we are not perfect. And that varies from person to person to a greater or lesser extent. So the obstacle.
So let me just before you talk about it, because a thought came to my mind as you're speaking. When we talk about those egoic constructs of who we are, and through them we have this need, and it's quite pressing need, right, to be perfect, to be the best that we can be, to meet the demands of the external, very material environment that we spiritual, immortal spirits, right, spiritual beings are inserted in this material existence. And there's a disconnect, which is what you just said. This idea
Mhm.
that that our ego really pushes us to be this idealized version of who we are. The thing that I just a thought that came to my mind is the fact that in many discussions we have this idea, well, let's kill the ego. right? Why can we not just diminish the ego because we are not our egos? And it's very interesting to see that no, 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 right? We do need our construct that the ego works in each incarnation, each life on a material dimension to develop our personalities.
Hmm.
So we are today because of it, but it's this really interesting, the best word that comes to my mind, almost like a war, a conflict of interest, if you will, the interest of the ego to create that the personality that is successful in the material life, and the other conflict, which is if we buy into it, right? If we buy into it, we are not equipped to do the other side of it. And I'm doing a triangle because I always see this two slopes. The other side of it, which is the idea of for us to grow as a spirit, right? An evolving spirit. For us to grow, we need to be authentic. We need to individuate, which means we need to look into ourselves as our material aspect is not the only one, right? And the conflicts become from believing that you are just this today, not that evolving, majestic, if you will, being that is created from love, from God, and will be destined to love.
Yeah. Um, the ego is often seen and understood as an evil
Mhm.
thing when
Yeah.
it's really not. It's just a psychological stance that manages our earthly existences and who we are at that present moment. The issue is not to have an ego. The issue is to align the ego with the self. In other words, there's also nothing wrong with the material realm. It has its place, it has its purpose, is a tool.
Mhm.
So it's just the issue is for the ego to understand to be a good manager, and it can be a good manager if it is in connection to the real goals of life, not at a cognitive level, but at a visceral level.
Mhm.
So it's not enough to know that we are immortal beings. It's, we can align when we feel, and that is so ingrained and so integrated in all levels of our psychic that it makes no sense to hurt anyone, for example. It makes no
Mhm.
sense. That is visually against our own selves. It
Mhm.
works against our own well-being. So that's the job. I mean, that's the journey, right? So the conflicts are also natural. They are part of the growth process. To be in conflict is better than not to be in conflict, because if you're not in conflict, you likely in denial, you're
Yeah.
likely asleep. So to be in conflict is to be in movement. To be in conflict is to be awake. And so it's to be alive is to bear some sort of discomfort with just being, because that is our current state of awareness and in our existence. But you know uh, just kind of trying to get back to the track so we don't
Yes.
deviate so much. um, the issue is that in this process of trial and errors, which is the natural process for growth, we will make mistakes. And so one of the big hurdles is that we bring in our unconscious a lot of our past experiences where we have made mistakes, and they are unresolved within us, and they create in the present moment some manifestations. These conflicts that we are talking about, and they're poorly managed by us, and they are in our unconscious. They express in the present moment in different ways. Sometimes it is fear, sometimes it is insecurity,
Mhm.
sometimes it is instability. And we, instead of like facing forward whatever it is, we tend to escape. And we can talk about different ways that Joanna mentions in the book, ways in which escape. Um, and but the escape is always, again, it's kind of hiding these, it's masking these conflicts. And this state of unresolved things leads to low self-esteem. We start disliking and not trusting ourselves, and ultimately it will, have a full expression of
Mm.
self-hatred, or not really liking, not really loving ourselves, which
Mm-hmm.
in itself becomes another error.
Correct.
Because
Mm-hmm.
as we started our
Mm-hmm.
conversation, everything in life is about love. And
Yeah.
so when we enter this path of self-love, of lack of self-love and self-destruction and self-harm, then we are kind of negatively reinforcing a pattern that's already in itself um, unhealthy, and can actually become quite pathological.
Yeah, and it's important for all of us to know that it's almost this pandemic, which
Hmm.
is that lack of self-love, right?
Yeah.
In every culture, in every country, in every subculture as well, different age groups, different races, different
Hmm.
genders.
Yeah.
We witness this incredible,
It's really
just
human. It's
yes,
human. So
yeah,
it's just
yeah, yeah.
there's no borders.
Yeah, yeah, and but as I mentioned, it's a pandemic because it's very um, everywhere, right?
Yeah, it has that connotation. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
Absolutely.
So it's
But
urgent. This conversation is quite urgent to me for us to talk about it. Of course, you are referencing Joanna de Angelis' book, which is a great book, by the
hmm,
way. But
yeah.
it's something that whatever we can do to bring the discussion. And what I mean by bringing the discussion is that there is a little bit of a, in my opinion, a little bit of a point counterpoint for you to go from here to the lack of self-love, right? So can you bring us into that journey perhaps? So
Yeah, I think at the very core, and she will
mm,
mention that in the book, is
mm,
guilt.
mm,
Guilt as unresolved experiences that
mhm,
we have,
mhm, mhm,
and the manage of lack of management of guilt. So I think that this is
mhm,
really like the gist of what we need to look at.
mhm,
Because when we think spiritually about, for example, obsessive processes, or
mhm,
um, psychiatric conditions, whether
mhm,
we are talking about compulsive disorders, or we're talking
mhm.
about something like depression, guilt is usually at the very core of these situations. And,
And it's, by the way, a multifaceted
yes,
discussion in itself, right? So it's
yes.
important that you bring that in. Yeah.
And it's important. I think it's not something we want to eliminate, because you know if you hurt someone, if you kill someone, and you don't feel guilt, then you're a sociopath, right?
Yes,
So
yes.
that's people who are hurting, and they're so incredibly
Mhm,
disconnected in
mhm.
such a pathological way that they don't feel remorse,
Yeah,
because they are severely ill. So
yeah.
guilt is important. It's a natural process that, it's kind of a warning. It's a kind of alarm that goes in our mind, in our conscious, that is telling us, look, this is not working for you. This is really not, you know, the best for you.
Yeah.
So it's okay. It's good. It's important to be there. The issue is, once you realize that that action was not, in line with love, then what's next? So
Yes.
what we have been doing, and the tendency that we have, is to go into a path of remorse. And this is where things get complicated, because remorse is anchored in pride.
Mhm.
So let me
And
explain
yeah,
this connection.
I needed to really unpack that because I think that's the gist of this whole idea
Yes,
of
yes.
guilt and lack of self-love.
Yeah, so when you enter a stage of remorse, you will
Mhm.
be in a place where most likely you will be saying things like, "Oh my God, I should not have done that. Oh my
True.
God, this
Hmm.
is this. I mean, I can't believe I did this." You know, and you get caught on this type of thinking, and you get stuck on this type of thinking, that
Hmm.
ultimately what it's saying is, this is really not who I am, and it was an accident. I'm not even sure how this happened. How could I have done that?
It's
So
inconceivable, right?
underneath
Yeah.
underneath this type of speech is
Yeah.
the idea that you were better than that,
Yes.
and that you could have never done that. And that's why remorse is anchored in pride,
Hmm.
because the alternative to that would be to say, "Oh my God, look, I am still that person capable of doing something like this," right? But
Love
with
it. Yeah.
remorse, you again, it's like, it's inconceivable for you that you are that human, right? And that
Hmm.
you are at that place. And that's when, the conflict gets established, and you will seek routes to escape. And
Hmm.
so she talks about different ones, like self criticism, like self punishment, like self pity, all ways in which you are stuck, you don't go forward, and you don't allow yourself to
Hmm.
start again. And there is this ancestral belief and cultural and religious idea that self punishment is a way of redemption.
And
So
this
I
is
must
important. Yeah. Yeah. Go
punish
ahead.
myself,
Yeah.
I must chastise myself
Yeah.
in order to, because I that's all I deserve. I don't deserve any better. So
Hmm.
I'm gonna put myself behind bars.
And
And
so
we
this is
don't
historical, right? So
yeah, so we used to
yeah.
do that
Yeah.
literally,
Yeah.
and hit ourselves, and until we bled and we were like
Hmm.
wounded. And maybe we don't do that anymore, physically and concretely, but emotionally,
Yeah.
you know, a lot of times we are beating ourselves pretty badly, bleeding internally, bruising
Yes.
our souls to the bone, really convinced that we are like garbage,
Yeah.
that we don't deserve any better, and believing that that place of misery and suffering is what is, I don't know, it's going to give us some salvation, or is all that we deserve. And so
There's a point
Joanna,
there too. So
Joanna is going
sorry.
to say that this is extremely, extremely
Yeah.
pathological.
Yeah, but there's also another component, right? Because I see the in my mind's eye the idea of, that we're talking about medieval times, for example, where the
Yeah,
self-punishment, but that is lingering, and it lingers in our collective unconscious as
hmm,
well as in our personal unconscious, right? This is what we
right.
bring with that legacy of our previous existence or even this
Hmm,
existence, as it's a reflection of our parents' own past. But I think it's important when you talk about this bleeding, right? We used to bleed and it was very
hmm,
physical, very, very, and we don't do that anymore.
hmm,
Um, but that internal emotional bleeding, right?
hmm.
Self-torture is also may also lead to physical illnesses, right? So I think the
Sure.
question of mental,
Absolutely.
emotional, and physical health are
Hmm,
completely connected at this point.
hmm. No, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we become, it's an emotional, spiritual illness, and like you
Mm.
mentioned, I mean, our entire being is connected. So a lot of times the body and will end up, we're hurting ourselves in all levels by doing
Yeah.
that, because
Mm.
this energy of condemnation is basically communicated to every single cell of our physical body. And
Absolutely.
so it's like a
Mhm.
toxic energy that is running into our system. And so it's disorganizing. That's the
Yeah.
thing. It's
Mhm.
a disorganizing mental state that ends up disorganizing the physical body. And a lot of times you will, you know, um, create different types of disorders, of pains, of aches, of malignancies, and
Mm.
etc. Um, Also, it can become so bad that the person can enter, for example, in a state of self pity,
Yeah.
where initially the person may attract people towards her because they're feeling bad for her, they wanted to help, but eventually she pushes those same folks away because, again, the person does not believe that she can be helped. She
Yeah.
does not believe that she's capable. So also in this process, not only we are immersed in guilt, but we also become blind. We lose sight of our own capacities, of the possibilities, and the numerous opportunities that life gives us to start again, to get up, to move forward. And so this process leads to isolation,
Yeah.
stagnation, and when you are stuck and isolated, you become a very easy prey for obsession, because you are already in a process of self obsession. And
Correct.
then it creates this perfect plug for other spirits who might be in the same frequency, and
Mhm.
that want you to stay like that,
Yeah.
stagnated, isolated,
Yeah.
and non-functioning. And so that's why a lot of times, for example, these processes can and are connected with depression, because depression ultimately, um, at a spiritual level, is when you say, okay, I cannot deal with this, so I am going to withdraw myself. I am, I'm not going to play anymore. I'm
Yeah.
going to stop this game. So the person withdraws from life. So to some extent, this is one, by no means I'm saying this is all. I'm just saying that this is an aspect that goes into depression, and that there is a very strong link with what we are talking about, which is this lack of self love and this cycle, very pathological cycle of guilt. Now, look how pride is a very strong element of this, because if you believe that you need to be right at all the time, and if errors become unbearable, you it's better if you don't live, if better if you don't play,
Yes.
because there is a risk in playing,
Yeah.
there is a risk in living.
Yeah.
If you're going to live, if you're going to grow, you have to, using the words of Brené Brown, you have to enter the arena. And
I
entering the
was I was thinking
arena
of her. Yeah, I was thinking of her exactly
Entering
as
the
you. Yeah.
arena
Uh, uh,
means taking risks, and like, I remember one of my colleagues that
uh,
she was taking a big exam academically, was very important, um, meant achieving another status, and she's like, I'm not going to tell anyone, because what if I don't pass?
yeah.
What if you
Yeah.
don't pass? You try again,
Yeah.
because but it's like there's
Yes.
shame in not passing, but it's difficult exam, and you're not less because you didn't pass. I mean, you have so many. different attributes, people know your value, but that's how we operate. So I, it can again become serious and lead to depression, because it's safer not to play, it's safer not to engage, because if I don't do anything, I'm not going to go forward, but I'm not going to make any mistakes too. In order to make a mistake, you got to be engaged. But at a further level, you
Mm-hmm.
can choose to not live anymore, literally. And that
Yes.
can be a door to suicide, right? It can
Yes.
become
Yes.
so incredibly unbearable, the idea that you are a failure,
Yeah.
right? And this lack of perspective, there's nothing else you can do. You can't get yourself out of it. And
Mm-hmm.
then, if you don't have any spiritual background, anything that can hold you down, then you can end up
It's not
choosing.
conceivable to do this
Yeah.
self-harm in self-elimination. But I wanted to just a parenthesis here,
Hmm.
just to make sure that we are both thinking and understanding this discussion, Susanna, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
You spoke, and I was thinking of her, Brene Brown, right? She's awesome and so easily digestible concept that she brings. And
Hmm.
one of the things that she, of course, that became widely popular was her discussion on empathy versus sympathy, and the thought that it came to my mind: if we're still struggling to understanding the definition of empathy, right? The
Hmm.
definition, not the feeling, but the definition and the behavior related to empathy, and that emotional intelligence, the whole realm of emotional intelligence, vocabulary, and understanding. How can we even talk about me understanding what I don't see clearly about all my feelings? One of the things that you mentioned here was the relationship with pride, and to me, I also call pride the superiority complex, right? From
Hmm.
a psychological term. So I am embracing this superiority, which is feeds my pride, my sense of arrogance, etc. And when I have to be above everybody else, which is also a mechanism of your ego, right? Back to the
Hmm.
beginning, then I cannot see myself as human, as potentially failing, but also potentially feeling aspects that I brought from that inherited archetypical uh, uh, unconscious that brings with me in my personal conscious, that it's really not conscious. So I don't know how to look at myself. I don't know how to talk. All right, I don't have the vocabulary to talk about emotions and feelings, and I'm lost. So all of it is quite interesting to me, or maybe the better word would be complex to me and to most of us. But let's keep on going, because this is a very interesting topic to me. So if you don't mind.
No, yes, and you know, I think when kind of going with what you're saying, empathy, sympathy,
Mhm.
it kind of takes us to the other route. Now, I think it's a hook to take us to in the other direction, because the other direction is, and what she suggests is that we substitute um, resentment for uh, I'm sorry, it's not resentment, it's
Remorse.
remorse.
Yeah.
Remorse
Yeah.
for regret,
Yes.
right?
Mhm.
So, and the difference is that when you regret something, you regret, and it's followed by a movement of taking responsibility, and it's
Mhm.
anchored in humility. So, humility calls for empathy.
Yeah.
And we tend to use this term towards others, but we have to have empathy towards ourselves in first place.
Mhm.
So to be empathic with our own human situation. And it's funny because when I was reading and reflecting about those things, and this is
Mhm.
a very day-to-day situation, which I really like to share those things because I like for the people who listen, whether my lectures or talks, always to go away taking something that is extremely concrete, that they
Mhm.
can relate the talk to that particular experience. So I went to teach, and I'm a adjunct professor at this university, so I'm not there all the time. And I was given by a friend of mine, a colleague of mine, a sticker for the parking lot. But you have to also have your car registered with
Mhm.
the university, which I had done in the past. Now I knew that that registration needed to be renewed every year. But I thought, well, I have the sticker, so I'm gonna park here and hope that it will be okay. And for a period of time, it was until one day, one morning, I went to teach 3 hours that morning. And when I came, there was a ticket on my window. And that ticket cost me 1 hour of my work that morning. So I worked three, got paid for two because I had to pay for that ticket.
Uh-huh.
And I'm driving home and I am thinking to myself, okay, I have two options here. I can go into remorse and drive all the way to my house, which was a 45-minute drive, thinking, oh my God, how could I've done that? Oh my
Mhm.
God, that's just so untypical of me or whatever, right? Or I could have gone into, get stuck into self criticism. I could have done another escape mechanism, which is to criticize the university,
Mhm.
criticize the system. So people who are constantly criticizing others,
Mhm.
constantly finding problems outside. They are escaping of their own humanity. They're having a very difficult time. And so they see problems and errors everywhere
Yeah.
else, right? So those are like projections. I can project the responsibility to the university and say that they have a flawed system and talk about how unreasonable that is. Or
Yeah.
I can say to myself, this is who I am. I am still a person capable of violating the law. And that, my dear friend, is a very, very humble experience.
Mhm.
It's extremely difficult for the ego to say that. And the person who steals and the person who is robbing is
Mhm.
violating the law in the same way. They and I, we're not that different as I like to think,
Uh-huh.
because I am in this planet that is a planet of trials and expiations because I am a spirit who violates the law.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, first step is the awareness, is to say, this is who I am. Painful, very
Yes.
painful, difficult, very difficult, you know. But if I don't start from here, then I can't grow. I can't go forward. Now, what can I do? I can say to myself, okay, so what's the next step? The next
Mhm.
step, I will try never again, no matter what it is,
Uh-huh.
to look for the shortcut, for the
Yeah.
shortcut,
Yeah.
right? Or in Portuguese, the expression jeitinho brasileiro, where we are trying always to go around the law, because
Yeah.
that's not the ethics and the moral that Jesus came to teach us. He
Mhm.
said, give to Caesar to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, and to God what belongs to God. Follow the rules. And we learn in the Spirit's book that
Mhm.
happiness can only be achieved if we follow the natural laws, which are
Yes.
the laws that Jesus came to fully exemplify in
Mhm.
words, in acts, in thoughts, in everything. So,
Mhm.
okay, so I say, so that's me, that's still who I am. I'm still capable of doing those things, but let me take this experience and see if I can learn and see if the next time I will do differently. Yes, it's work. I have to call the university, I have to get into their website, I have to register my car. Sometimes I don't have time. and I'm like, let me try to get away with this. I can come up also and give myself many justifications why I didn't do it, but at the end, it was the wrong thing.
Mhm.
And I'm
Simple,
capable
simple
of
as that.
those
Yeah,
things.
yeah,
Yes, and
yeah,
I'm capable of these things. So again, I can go around and around and around criticizing, justifying. When we catch ourselves justifying, take a deep breath and stop.
yeah,
Just say it out loud so you can hear it, and
yeah,
then ask yourself, okay, what's next? What am I going to learn from this? And
yeah,
try to do different. Now, this is what life wants from us. This is what the universe expects from us. The universe does not function in a basis of punishment.
yeah.
The basis of the universe, what permeates the universe, is love and positivity, is
Yes,
love and progress. So, what the universe wants from us, or God wants from us, uh, what's going to grant us mental health and spiritual health, is the ability to embrace where we are, take responsibility, but understand that we are also much more than that. We
mhm,
have potentialities, we have the capability for growth. That's what the universe wants. The universe doesn't want us to beat ourselves up and to crucify ourselves. The universe wants us to move forward, to
yeah,
learn, to grow. So this is a self-love choice, one that doesn't move the problem away, but creates the perfect psychic environment for growth, for true redemption, for true rehabilitation
I love it.
through
Yeah,
healthy and positive. I'm using the word positive because that's the word that Joanna uses in the book.
yeah, but
Positive path.
also, yeah, one of the things that I keep coming in my mind is accountable, right? As
Mm-hmm.
we grow, and we can use the metaphor of a baby that I don't know breaks something is not accountable because it's not able yet to take
Right.
care of that. So when we are through our maturity, be it psychological maturity, be it just from our age group or earth, whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
We become more and more accountable. And with
Right.
accountability means we look at our mistakes inward. What did I do? Right? What did I do?
Mm-hmm.
How can I remediate? How can I address the error instead of this introspection of whatever defense mechanism may be
Yeah.
that you're
Mm-hmm.
using to, no, 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 I did not do it. I'm just an adjunct professor. I don't need to be here every day. I don't need
Right.
to
Right.
register the car and so
Yeah.
on. Just a joke. So,
No, no, yeah, no, that's exactly it. And I save here on my screen here a sentence from her that she says that life is a hymn of praise to progress.
yes,
Life's values are of a positive nature, never manifesting through perturbing or afflictive methods.
yes.
So life is not expecting punishment. Is not that's not it. And it's hard because again,
Mhm.
it's ingrained in our psychic,
Yeah.
this sinful, and that you have to pay. Even in our spiritual talks, it still comes a lot of times
Hmm.
loaded with
Hmm.
this idea of like you paying for your debts. No, you're not paying for your debts.
Yeah. Yeah.
You are learning, you are being given opportunities to do things differently. It's not like a payment of a debt, it's life's working and saying, hey, you messed up here, let me rearrange the scenario here to create good and an environment that is rich of sometimes challenges and difficulties, but that that are going to really foster your growth and your realignment and restore in you your sense of well-being. It's always positive. It's
Yeah.
always in the sense of like it's always a loving intervention that
Yes.
is seeking to tell you about how good you are and your potentials, and that you know your worth as a human being. So it's a very different perspective that not always we are able to convey, I think, yet,
Hmm.
um, in these terms,
Yes.
in our talks and stuff. But anyways,
No,
so
this is very
that's the
good.
proposal. Yes,
So Joanna says life is a hymn of praise to progress, right?
yes,
So,
yeah,
so let us all sing this hymn, right? Which means if we're praising, the sense of progress means back to the beginning, that we are on this journey to perfectibility, right?
right.
I'd say, Susan, I think we mentioned earlier somehow that there is this process of self-healing, right? That for every mistake, you, unlike the psychopath that has no empathy, therefore no guilty
Right.
conscience, right?
Mm-hmm.
But as we have a sense of, oh, something is wrong, I've done it, I suffer. There's the sense of your soul, yourself, your inner sense of moral compass, like, oh, I am wrong. Let us look with regret, self-awareness, responsibility, accountability, and go, like you said, toward health, to be well, to be healed, and most important, loved by yourself. Does this make
Mm-hmm.
sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the path of self-love, right?
Mm-hmm,
It
mm-hmm,
starts with these, you have to anchor yourself in humbleness,
mm-hmm,
like I
mm-hmm,
said, is
mm-hmm,
embracing the human in you, understanding that this is
mm-hmm.
what God wanted. That's how God
Yeah,
wanted. So
yeah,
therefore it is divine in itself, nothing wrong with that. We will make mistakes. Make no mistake, we will make mistakes, many mistakes. It's okay. I mean, as long as what is self love? Okay, I embrace who I am, and I don't judge myself, but I take responsibility, and
yeah.
I move right towards fixing, towards doing whatever needs to be done, towards learning, towards reflecting. And
Mm-hmm.
this is movement. So self love means that you create the situation for you to continue to heal, to
Mm-hmm.
grow, and to move. Life is movement. When
Yes,
you go into self punishment, you are you stop moving. You're stuck. So you are denying yourself the conditions for your own happiness, because happiness will come with movement, with progress. Life
yes,
is a hymn of praise to progress. If
yeah,
you are behind bars, or if you're stuck in the cross, that's it. You're not progressing. You are condemning yourself to immobility. You are
yeah,
dying. You can be
yeah,
even physically alive, but emotionally dead, because you're no longer engaging with life out of shame, out of fear, out of self hatred. And so you are ill. She says, just to, I really like, because she talks about the
mm-hmm.
lack of self love is a behavioral disorder
Mm-hmm.
requiring special care in order not to degenerate into self aversion on its way to becoming even more serious conflicts such as self hatred, self resentment, and disinterested for life. So that's what we are trying to avoid, going in the other way. Sometimes we're going to be more successful than other times, but I think the first step is to have this awareness. And if I would say for people, what can I take from this? Just remember that in dealing with guilt, there are two paths that you can always choose: resentment that's anchored in pride, or regret that's anchored in humbleness. So
Yes,
if you feel like you're going through the pathological way, you can always take a U-turn, because
yes,
at times we're going to beat ourselves. We are our most rigorous judges.
yes,
And and like I said, love is something that we are learning, and self-love is part of the learning. So it's an exercise. Sometimes, again, we're going to do a little better than other times. But as long as we have these concept in our minds, we can take a U-turn, and that's okay. We can take as many U-turns in life as necessary.
Love it. And with that, I would say we are at time. Suzanne, I love this time with you. I really appreciate it. And for all of you who are here with us today, just remember all you need is love, and that there's nothing you can do that can't be done through love. Everyone, thank you so much, and we'll see you next week. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.